Welcome to Women Rise. I'm Councilmember Jane Poston, and on this show, I hope to connect the business world and women who are making a difference and are trailblazing in our community. And I am so excited to introduce you to our guests today. And on this show, one other thing that I'd like to accomplish is helping younger, new professionals learn how to connect with those women who have already had those business and professional successes in their career. So, to get started today, we are going to talk to a good friend of mine, Dr. Karen Tepper. She is president and CEO of Terros Health. You are already making a huge difference in the community. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, could you start by telling us about your leadership role at Terros Health?
So Terrace Health is a healthcare company. We've been in the Valley since 1969, so serving people for over 50 years. We started in the behavioral health space. Actually, a group of teenagers came together and discovered friends and family members were struggling with substance use, got a van and started driving around town. So I like to say at Terrace Health, we're sort of hippies at heart. But since 1969, we have grown into an $85 million company with over 800 employees, serving over 45,000 people every year who have either physical health or behavioral health challenges or just preventative care. So we now do primary care services in 9 locations plus mobile health units across the Valley. So, and we're statewide. So we're doing services in Mojave County and Pima County and in Sierra Vista, all across the state of Arizona now.
You know, I'm actually going to jump to you also do something with Boys and Girls Club. Eventually here in Chandler as well?
Eventually here in Chandler as well. So we're super excited about the partnership with Boys and Girls Club. We started in August. And our goal is that we will have a Terrace Health employee embedded within every Boys and Girls Club within 3 years. So we're starting in 10 clubs this year. We're actually in 10 clubs right now. We'll hit 20 next year and 30 the year after, but it's a partnership between Terrace Health and the Boys and Girls Club that is funded by a combination of funders. So we have foundation partners like Piper and Hallie and the Parsons Foundation who are supporting this, as well as the Department of Education, who really was instrumental in getting this program started. By having Terrace Health employees in those clubs, it's allowing us to both work with the staff, so educating the staff around mental health and how do you recognize the signs and symptoms of a young person who's struggling, and also work with the young people. So we're doing things like mindfulness activities and working on relationships within the day-to-day programming of the club, and then identifying those youth that maybe have the need for more intensive kinds of services or actually counseling, family counseling, individual counseling.
Well, I feel like we're so much more cognizant of the issues around mental health, especially surrounding our youth, and it's great, and I cannot wait to welcome you to Chandler for Terrace Health. But let's talk about you a little bit.
Yes.
You have only been president and CEO for about 10 months. And as far as I can tell, I am seeing you in every magazine possible. So AZ Big Media, I know Phoenix Business Journal. Tell us a little bit about your leadership.
It has been a wild year. It has really been a wild year. So as the president and CEO of Terros Health, I have the privilege of leading our employees, of over 800 of them right now. And we have just been unbelievably blessed with incredible success this year. So yes, I was named one of the Arizona's most influential women by AZ Big Media, which was an incredible honor. But the bigger honor was that Terros Health was recognized as one of the most admired companies. We were actually a finalist with Phoenix Business Journal for Healthiest Employer. And so really proud of just the work that we're doing as a company, the attention that we're getting for doing great work and making a difference in the community.
Well, you were being awfully modest, but they are getting there because of your leadership and your leadership style. So tell me what your leadership style is.
So I see my role as a leader is to really identify the unique strengths and abilities of the people around me and then put them in the position to do really amazing work. And so fortunately, I have a wonderful team, and so it's easy to do that. But that is really the style that I encourage. I think empowerment is one of our core values at Terros Health, and it's one of the things that I think we've done best over the last year is really empower our employees to make great decisions, empower people to feel like they're a part of the solution and they're creating way better solutions than I could ever. So it's beautiful to watch and really has resulted in great things, great care, and great impact in the community.
That's fantastic. What would you say to someone that wanted a mentor from an executive like yourself? And have you ever had a mentor?
I absolutely have had many mentors. So I think that's one of the, first I would say go get one quickly. But mentorship looks a lot of different ways to a lot of different people. I will say in my experience, the mentors that have had the biggest impact on me have been those individuals that have given me seats at tables that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be sitting at. And I remember actually even being in my 20s and being invited to participate in a meeting with folks that I looked around the table and went, all of these people have been doing this work since before I was born. What am I doing here? And I just had a boss and a mentor who was supportive and said, I want you to be able to sit at the table. I want you to be able to learn, and I want you to learn how to hold your own with folks that have been doing this since before you were born. And so absolutely terrifying and absolutely just an amazing experience, because you learn things just by absorbing the energy in the room and from the people around it. So that's one of the things I try to do with the folks that I mentor, with the folks that I coach, with the folks that I get to work with every day, is how can we provide development opportunities that are a little bit of a stretch. So putting them in positions that are a little bit outside of their comfort zone, things that they maybe don't have experience in, but you see the potential, and then watch them blossom.
I love that you say that, because I have been around those tables myself where I looked around and went, how did I get here? This is fantastic. But I think that's a lot, that's probably pretty common for people entering the workforce or young women. We kind of give that little self-doubt. So I love that you said that. What would your expectations of someone you were mentoring, what would your expectations be to them? How to get a mentor? What should they bring to someone as well?
So much of it is chemistry. It is about relationships, as you said. You find someone that you connect with and that you resonate with and that you feel comfortable sharing with and being vulnerable and being open. And that could be somebody in your field. It could be someone that you run into in other parts of your life. But there's always things you can learn and you can grow, and you build that relationship and then connect with folks. And I remember the first time somebody referred to me as their mentor, and it wasn't a formal mentor. I didn't know I was their mentor.
Right.
It was actually a woman who worked at Arizona State University and asked me to come and lecture in a class that she was teaching. And I did a guest lecture, and she introduced me to the class as her mentor. And I looked around and thought, who is she talking about? But we had built a relationship, and she and I had a bi-directional sort of mutual reliance on one another, learning from one another, helping one another, supporting one another in our careers.
And then my advice to those women who are sitting at the table that feel like they don't belong there, you do, even if it's just to learn like you were back then.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that I have learned as I talk with other women as they're sort of moving up in their careers, is how often we doubt ourselves, how often we question, should I really be here? Do I really deserve this? And I can tell you, when I got notified by Phoenix Business Journal that I was one of the most admired leaders of 2023, that is the thought that went through my head, right? Like, really? Me? So it still happens, but yes, I tell women all the time, push through that and embrace it, because that's your power.
And so, you have two daughters.
I
know both
do.
of them. They're wonderful. But do you think the way they will enter the workforce is different maybe than the way you entered the workforce, because they're looking at mom who is CEO of a major corporation? You are one of very few female CEOs.
So I think what's amazing about my daughters is they will tell you it's not a big deal. Like, we have totally normalized the fact that, yeah, you can be mom and you can be a CEO, and that's just normal. That's
Good.
just what it looks like. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that is a difference.
So what was your journey to become CEO of Terros Health?
So if you look at my resume, it looks like I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, and that's probably because I didn't. But my journey has been really powerful because I've had the ability in all kinds of different contexts to do work that was mission-driven work. So I've worked at a university, I've worked in government, I've worked in the for-profit sector, I've worked in nonprofit, all doing work that was designed around how do we impact communities, how do we make people's lives better, how do we create healthier, happier families. And so that's been what's driven me. That's been the sort of thread of that's been continuous throughout everything I've done. So I started off at the University of Arizona. I had received a PhD there in human development and family studies, and then worked there for almost a decade, really supporting families and communities across the United States. Moved into for-profit where I was doing mainly quality improvement kinds of work, and within a couple of years was promoted to be the CEO because I discovered I was really good at leadership. And while I didn't know a thing about what we were doing as a company, I was good at leading people. I was good at helping folks to find their why and helping folks to connect to the work. We sold that company, and then I moved to Terros Health. I was the chief administrative officer when I was hired, moved into the COO role, and then about 10 months ago became the president and CEO. So it's been a journey, it's been a whirlwind, but it's been incredibly powerful and fulfilling to really be able to make a difference in people's lives.
Well, and I love the fact that now that you are in a leadership role, you can make sure that the company that you work for is mission driven.
Absolutely. So one of the things that happened around the same time that I was named as the CEO of Terros Health was my older daughter started experiencing some health challenges. And that personally has been incredibly difficult during this last year. But on the flip side, it has given me the experience of being a patient in the system, navigating a chronic health condition. And that perspective is invaluable when you are leading a healthcare company. So every single new employee hears her story. Every single new employee hears about the impact that they get to make on people's lives and the importance of thinking about those individuals and thinking about the individual needs of the people in front of them every day when they come to work.
Take a moment. That's amazing, because you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk, and you're making sure those employees know it.
We are, and you know, yesterday when I met with our new group, what I shared with them, which I haven't shared before, is I had thought we just needed to make some tweaks to healthcare. We needed to do it just a little bit better than other folks. And what I have learned now is that really we need to transform the way we deliver care. It's not about tweaks, it's about radical transformation. And so that I've engaged our team at Terrace Health in thinking about what does it mean to radically transform the way we deliver care.
That's fantastic. That is amazing. So I had a little question, and I know you're maybe reluctant to answer about maybe what your biggest failure is. But I guess all I'm trying to say is, and I think you alluded to it, we're not perfect.
Oh, goodness.
You know?
Oh, goodness.
I think every time when I was younger, I looked at people in positions of leadership and went, wow, you know, they must have done everything great. And, you know, now I'm in a leadership role myself and sending emails at 3 a.m. And I know you are too.
I absolutely am. And I think for me, it's not about one failure. It's really about multiple failures every single day. There's big ones, there's little ones. But what's important is the recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, if you're not failing, you're probably not trying enough stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't get hung up on the failures anymore. What I think about is what's the takeaway? What can I learn from this? And then how quickly can I move on to the next thing? And so in my younger days, those failures, I mean, I can tell you in graphic detail about the failures from the early days of my career, but those didn't help as much. What's important is take the lesson and move on. Because if you're so afraid of making a mistake or having a failure, you're not going to try enough.
Awesome. What advice would you give to someone who is looking to either climb that ladder or even, you know, I like to say lead from where you stand, because you may not be the CEO of a major company. You may just be in charge of a staff, or you may be a solopreneur. You may just be, you know, serving on a committee in your community. Lead from where you stand is what I like to say. What would you tell people who are interested in a leadership role, or even not? Because I want you to be interested in a leadership role if you're a woman in our community.
Absolutely. And what I tell our folks is everybody's a leader, no matter, so it's the same concept, right? And you can have a leadership impact from any place within any organizational chart. It's about looking at what is your ability to make things better? How can you sort of take ownership of whatever it is that you're doing and push and innovate and be creative and bold and brave and assertive, and communicate. So very, very often people will say, well, we have to do it this way because that's what they told me to do. And I will always say to folks, did you have a conversation? Did you talk with them about why they told you to do this? And what are your ideas? And have you brought forth, an alternative? And you can do that from any spot, in any company, in any place. And I have made it a point actually to try to have one-on-one conversations with almost every single employee we have, and given them an opportunity to share ideas. And I can tell you the ideas that we have gotten from them and the things we've been able to implement because employees have said, well, what if we did it this way? Or have you ever thought about? And we go, well, we can try it. So that is where all great ideas come from, is the people that know the work best. So you can lead from anywhere.
And I imagine you setting that standard sort of creates that's okay on down the line for supervisors and your other leaders in your organization.
Yes, and we're starting to hear that from people is, Karen said we can just bring ideas, or, Karen said she's listening when we talk to her.
And then she actually is.
And she's doing something about it. Like, she told us she was going to do this and now she's doing it. So for me, that's really important, is creating, agreement between what I say and what I do, right? The actions should match my words.
Awesome. Well, we have some questions from some young professionals that we are going to ask you in a few minutes. So do you stick around a little bit after the next segment to answer those questions?
I would be honored.
Okay, that is wonderful. We will come back to you in just a moment. But right now, we are going to talk to a woman who is an author right here in Chandler and is making a difference for young women here in our community and actually throughout the country.
Know that home is where love and happiness are for me. Always remember, Zoe, that you are loved, said Zoe's mom.
So I'm with Eboniè Fields, an author right here in Chandler, who has brought her books. You all are in for a treat because you have some amazing books. You are not only making a difference in this country, you're making a difference internationally as well. So I want to talk about the amazing books that you have. Let's start with, why don't you show one of them? They're hummingbird themed.
Yes,
Can we
yes.
start and just give me a big picture about what these books are about and what you're doing?
So I have an award-winning magical hummingbird series. My first book, actually, Zini and the Magical Hummingbirds, has recently sold out at Barnes & Noble at Dana Park.
That's amazing.
Yes, and so I don't have it with me today, but I do have Zoe, which is also an award-winning book. It's won a Silver Recipient Award from the Mom's Choice Award, 5-star review from Reader's Favorite, and an honorable mention from the Royal Dragonfly Book Awards. So Zoe and the Magical Hummingbirds is about a little girl who has it all, beautiful family, but she has a new baby sister. And once a new baby sister is born, she becomes extremely jealous and decides to run away from home. As she's running away from home, she comes across 2 magical hummingbirds that take her on an incredible journey through Jamaica, where she meets friends and learns the value of love, family, and friendship. And loving a sibling is a blessing.
Yes, it is. So what's the importance of the hummingbird? They're throughout your books, and I know you're wearing one right now.
In my series, the consistent characters are my hummingbirds, my magical hummingbirds. They are considered to be God's birds in my stories. And they are there to help children along the way that are dealing with family issues, challenges in their life, or not even understanding the blessings they have. And these magical hummingbirds take my characters on magical, incredible adventures where they learn the value of love, family, and friendship, and how home is where the heart is.
Oh, that's amazing. And I know you could talk about your books all day, but I want to talk about you a little bit. So I think becoming an author, writing a book, is a huge, huge deal. It's a big obstacle. Tell me how you did that. What really inspired you to jump out and have the courage to do something like this?
That's a great question, Jean. So one day, my husband and I were deciding to plan our own family. And so I decided to go to Barnes & Noble. And just walk around, read books about what to expect, and just claim having a new baby. And I decided to go and walk over to the children's book section. But as I was walking around, I noticed a lack of diversity in the collection. And I went home to my husband and I shared with him my observation. And he said, "Babe, you enjoy writing and coming up with creative stories. Why don't you write a children's book?"
You go do something about that.
Yeah, exactly. So I did, and I wrote Zini and the Magical Hummingbirds, which was my first book that I actually wrote in 2013. And it was something that I not only did for myself as a project I wanted to complete, but for my children. For the children that I knew were on the way.
Right.
And I wanted them to be able to see characters that reflected them and also teach them family values and the importance of love.
That's absolutely fantastic. And tell me a little about, we're talking about women being examples to women, being mentors. You're doing all of that through representation in these books, is how I see it. Why is that so important to young girls or young women of color?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I can tell you my experience as growing up as a young Black woman. You do come across certain challenges where you don't see characters or folks in the movies and in animated series that reflect you. And it's not about just seeing your color, but also being inspired as well. So
They're heroes.
They're heroes.
Yes.
Exactly. And so I wrote my book for young women to not only see themselves, but also to see themselves as able to be creative, able to see themselves as authors, able to complete a creative project and be inspired and to keep on doing it, where they leave a legacy behind in literary collections.
And they're not only seeing that in the books, they can see that in you.
Yes,
And
yes.
you are going to be leaving a legacy. Tell
Yes.
me why a little about that.
So the legacy I want to leave behind was motivated by my children. I have a 4-year-old little girl and a 6-year-old little boy who actually, they both come to me to all my Barnes & Noble events.
That's great.
And so what I want to leave behind, similar to the Bernstein Bears, is something that all children of all races and all colors around the world can enjoy, a magical adventure that they can see is inspired and created and birthed from a strong Black woman, that has overcome challenges and did not let obstacles come in the way of allowing her to achieve her dreams. And so my kids see that. They see that I came up with an idea and executed it to where they're seeing mommy's books in Barnes & Noble, they're seeing mommy on TV shows, interviews and newspapers and magazines. And so I am leaving a legacy for my kids that you can accomplish anything you put your mind to.
And other people's kids as well.
Exactly.
Yes. So, when you're leaving a legacy, when you're writing a book, what was that actual sort of leap of faith, that sort of moment of bravery that you took to jump on and say, I can do this?
I prayed about it.
Good for you. That's
I
amazing.
prayed about it. So I will tell anybody, when I'm writing, my work comes from what I feel a channel from my higher being, from God. Because again, these books are having the magical hummingbirds, they're God's birds. And so I feel that inspiration through my relationship with my Heavenly Father to keep on writing and to say, you can do this, and just be creative and have fun.
That's absolutely beautiful. That is beautiful. And we talked a little about being a mentor. Tell me a little bit about your mentors, the people in your life that, sort of led you to the point that you knew you could do something like this.
Yeah, so I would say my biggest mentors in my life are my grandmothers on both sides, my father's side and my mother's side. Patricia Bazoon on my mother's side and Louise Torrance on my father's side. Both of my grandmothers have been very loving, inspirational to me to continue to be strong, to self-love, because self-love helps with your confidence in anything you do. not only your appearance and your impression to those you meet, but your confidence in the skills that God has given you to produce wonderful projects like my Magical Hummingbird series.
You know, I think we owe a little shout out to your husband too.
Yes.
He obviously had faith in you to
Yes.
just assume, hey, of course you can do this,
Yes.
right?
Yes, he definitely has been wonderful in motivating me to keep on writing, to never give up. I remember one Christmas, I had already written Zini and the Magical Hummingbirds, and I kind of had a writer's block for the second series, the second book, and I knew I wanted to write a second book because I came across a little fan that actually at an AutoZone that asked me, when am I going to write another book?
Oh.
And it just touched my heart. So I knew I was going to write more books within my series. And one Christmas, my husband bought me a new laptop, and he said, here you go, write another book.
That is awesome. That is awesome. What would be your advice to anyone out there that wants to become an author? You know, there are a lot of challenges to doing something like this, but now you're being distributed worldwide. You said, what, you go and check, you know, about once a week, and you're finding new bookstores are picking you up. So, you know, it's sort of like that overnight success takes years to create, right?
Exactly. Nothing happens overnight, but the most successful people are the ones that don't give up, that are not deterred from their dreams or let anybody deter them from their dreams. And I would say to authors that are coming up, that want to write a book, just do it. Just go ahead and start writing, start typing, get that pen on the paper, whatever you need to do to just ignite that creative flame you have and let it keep on burning.
Were there any late nights or moments where you had doubt and thought, I can't do this?
Yes, honestly, that does happen with a lot of people, a lot of authors. You get writer's block, or you feel that your book isn't selling fast enough or getting the exposure it needs. But I tend to, and always revert back to my relationship with God, to stay faithful in living out my dreams. And so when I wrote Zini, it was my first book, and I did not have all the resources or the education on, okay, what's the next step for an author to market your book? You know, I just did not have that. But when I wrote Zoe and the Magical Hummingbirds during quarantine,
You spent your time wisely.
Yes, I did. I completed her while in quarantine, and I said, I'm going to do it, and I believe in the work that I've put together the last few years since Zini. And when Zoe came out, she was #5 on Amazon's hot new releases for children's books.
Wow. Wow.
And that day, I remember having my husband pinch me because I said, is this real? Is this happening? And he's like, he pinched me, and he says, yes, it is. Your hard work paid off. And so I tell authors and anybody I know, if you believe in a project, keep going. Don't give up.
That's awesome. Well, is there anything else that I should be asking about, or you'd like to tell people about your books or being an author, or advice to young women that you'd like to give before we wrap this up?
Well, my advice to young women is always self-love. You know, I wish I learned that at a younger age. And with social media and so much pressure on how you look in comparison to other girls, other women, if you believe in yourself and have that confidence, and you surround yourself around good people. When I say good people, people who want to see you win.
Yes.
People that will be transparent as well when they recognize that, okay, like my husband, for example, when are you going to finish the second book? And he bought me a new laptop. So, you know, it's important to have people that help motivate you on your dreams.
And that will say the same thing about you when you're not in the room as they say about you when you're in the room, right?
Exactly.
That you're amazing, that you're gonna win, you're a fantastic author. And it
Yes.
sounds like you have surrounded yourself with awesome people. And
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for being here and doing this. I have been so excited about this because I knew you would be inspirational, and you absolutely were. Thank you so much. And I wish you the best of luck, and I can't wait to see the next series or the next book. I know you're selling out, so Eboniè, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Jane, for having me.
Absolutely.
To the laughing answer, Zoe, I hear splashing. It must be my brother. Thank you, mister, but we've got it from here, said Sean. I'm just an old man with wisdom and knowledge to give truth to those who will acknowledge, said the old man. He smiled at Sean and Zoe, showing the 4 teeth in his mouth, and slowly walked backward into a dark shadow. That was weird, said Sean. Yes, it was. Let's just hurry up and find your brother, said Zoe.
So, like I said, Eboniè is amazing. I hope everybody runs out and buys her books. And up next, we are going to hear from those students that have some questions for you. So let's go ahead and watch.
All right.
What is the best advice that you were ever given that got you where you are today?
Okay, that was a good one. What is the best advice that you've received?
So I will tell you, actually, one of the best pieces of advice came from a TED Talk.
Oh.
Sheryl Sandberg did a TED Talk many years ago where she talked about the fact that the most important decision a woman makes for her career is the person she's going to marry. Absolutely most profoundly important advice that I have gotten and would give. I mean, I think I'm incredibly blessed with a really wonderful, supportive husband, but continuing to remember that the role that the person you're going to spend your life with is really important in the career choices you make.
That's fantastic. Very good. You up for one more?
I absolutely am.
Okay.
My question is, what is something you would tell your younger self based on what you know now?
All right. Well, that is another good one. I think we have lots of things we would tell our younger selves, right?
Oh, yes. But for me, it really is to take more risks. There were a lot of things that I didn't do as a younger person that I was afraid. I was afraid of failure. I was afraid of not being successful. I was afraid of looking foolish. And so I wish I had taken more risks. And I try really hard now to not be afraid of risk.
That is fantastic. Well, Karen, Dr. Tepper, thank you so much for being with us here today. Any final words?
Just thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about the work you're doing with this program, and I hope it's helpful for women and that it's helpful for Chandler.
Fantastic. And I cannot wait. Again, going to hold you to it to see Terros Health right here at the Boys and Girls Club in Chandler. Thank you again for being with us. Well, I'm Councilmember Jane Poston. This has been Women Rise. Thank you for joining us today.